Welcome to Visit SoCal. I'm your host, Patrick Maloney, and today's special guest is the one and only Mr. Larry Burns, everybody. Check it out. Woo! Welcome to Visit SoCal. What a day. We're in Norco, California with my good friend, Mr. Larry Burns. And because he had a book that's about doing stuff interesting throughout Inland Empire, we thought, hey, invite him onto the show. And we had to come down here because I found this place in his book, and I said, hey, we got to come down and check out the Norco Powerhouse, otherwise known as the Pedley Powerhouse.
That's right. And I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me out here, Patrick, to experience the Powerhouse. I don't get out here as often as I'd like, and to experience some new graffiti art has been a real pleasure. I was out here 2.5 years ago to research the book and document it, and all of the art has changed in those last 2.5 years, so it's like a whole new experience, just the structure's the same.
I remember stopping here once when I was a kid, and just stopping by and not really appreciating it, just going, oh, that's kind of neat. But now as, 40-year-old adult, I'm like, this is really cool. This is something where you can come down here. I'm a little bummed out there is a lot of trash, but then I realize what the trash is. It's a lot of paint cans. So that's what they're doing. They bring down the paint cans and do some art.
Yeah, and that's a good idea. People ask, what do you do at these places? And most of us aren't going to come down here and tag this place. And I personally don't recommend doing so. If artists want to express themselves, that's fine. But that's not something that I'm promoting by visiting these places. So what people can do is maybe bring a bag and then truck out a couple bags of trash when they visit these kinds of places. It really keeps this place beautiful. It really helps it be a collective experience for everyone. So you can participate without actually doing anything in here. And it's a little bit more than just hanging out. So it's a good use of the space. It's
not too hard to be a courteous guy and just, hey, why not pick up a little trash on the way out?
No, and having visited a number of graffiti sites throughout the Inland Empire, the ones that are much more pleasurable to visit and you get much more new and interesting art are the ones that are taken care of a little bit by the communities that use them. So participating in it in that small way makes a big difference.
Now, this place was built, I believe, in 1903, am I correct?
That's correct. It was operational in 1904. It only lasted about a year. It was plagued by problems from the beginning. The channel, 6 Mile channel that feeds this from the Santa Ana River was an engineering feat, and there was really nothing like it at the time. This is the time of great innovation in this field. And unfortunately, the layout didn't quite match, and also the feeding, the water supply was inconsistent at times, so it couldn't consistently feed. So it very quickly went bankrupt and was picked up again by a couple of other power companies throughout the years. So it was abandoned a couple of different times throughout its history, but here it sits.
It's got a lot of crazy vibes in here in history. I know, I looked online and a lot of people have ghost stories and stuff about this place. Did you come and see any ghosts here last time you were here?
I'm open-minded. I came here on several occasions. I've yet to see anything supernatural. Everything I see here has an explanation so far.
Yeah, it's kind of the vibe here. It's one of those things, too, when you come in here, first off, when you see the pictures, I won't lie, it does seem bigger in the pictures. So when you get here, it's only about a 3-story building, but it's really cool. I mean, if you want to take pictures with your band or get something for just really cool shots for something interesting, this is the place to go. It is about a 1/4-mile walk to get around here, but it's worth it. And this is also right next to the Santa Ana River, so you got the trails. And another thing is, you're not smelling it, but there's definitely been a horse here. So if you got a horse, there's no excuse to not bring your horse down here and come check this out. Is there anything else you want to tell us about this powerhouse? And it's really cool and interesting, and honestly, it's kind of just mesmerizing. You're in here, and it looks like there's stars behind us.
Yeah, when you stand inside here at this time of day with the overcast, we've got a little early June gloom here, it really gives you a nighttime effect, kind of a pleasant, calming effect. So this is a good time today to go, earlier in the day when it's cool. Riverside and Pedley and Jurupa Valley all get hot, and Norco get hot during the day, so this is a good place to visit early in the day or towards dusk. Maybe watch the sunset over the Santa Ana River.
I definitely would not recommend coming here in the middle of the day when it's 100 degrees, but yes, right now we're here, it's nice. It's only like maybe 75 degrees, it's perfect. Just come on down here when it's early And bring the family, bring some friends. It's cool. It's really not that bad of a walk. There's also a cool nursery we went through. Now, how do we get here? Just so if somebody's watching, it was a little hard for us to find this at first, but we found it. So what street do we have to pull off on or park at?
My recommendation and where I typically go is I go to the corner of North Drives and Crestview. And that's right out in front of the nursery. There's shoulder parking, comfortable parking. You can park away from the street and out of the horse trail, so you're not disturbing any of the residents that use this space. And then it's about a 7-minute walk down the horse trail. And it's pleasant. You're seeing some art along the way, some graffiti, and you're also walking through parts of the nursery as well. So it's an enjoyable trek down to get here.
Definitely don't bring your tennis shoes like I did today. That wasn't a good idea. You should probably bring hiking shoes if you have them.
Definitely wear that.
He's wearing the better ones. I'm not going to try to even show you my feet because they're so dirty right now. I wore black shoes. They are not black anymore.
And bring sunscreen, bring water, bring first aid kit. There's no services here. Maybe a horse might wander around by at some point during the day, but you're on your own here.
I know during the time we've been here, there hasn't been a soul that's walked by or rode by yet. So this is really cool. It's a nice, calming place. You got to come down here. Make sure to bring your camera, bring some friends. The other thing is, I always mess this up. We're in Norco or Pedley or what is it? It's the Pedley Powerhouse, but it's also the Norco Powerhouse.
Yeah, so the community of Pedley was named after William Pedley, who designed it and was actually a famous engineer. He worked not only on this site, but he originally worked in San Jacinto, and he worked on some other places for the hydroelectric system that developed along the Santa Ana River, which was really one of a kind and unique to the world and really demonstrated. We talk about ways in which the Inland Empire is special, and I'm really interested in how the Inland Empire has changed the world. And another way the Inland Empire has changed the world is with this hydroelectric system that runs along the Santa Ana River. This is one of the installations. The first one is right at the top part of Mill Creek, which is a major tributary to the Santa Ana River. And that's the first one of its kind. And it not only powered the citrus industry in Redlands and then soon after that in Riverside, but then that power went directly to Los Angeles. So when we talk about influence and power, these types of hydroelectric systems powered Los Angeles, not the other way around. We provided the resources to the rest of the world. And we continue to impact in beautiful ways just like that today.
That's so cool. There's so much information here. It's just really nice to stop by here, and I get to hang out with Larry. Also, you got to check out Larry's book. I know we're going to be showing you a video or a picture right now on the screen. Check out the book. That's the reason why I stopped here. And by the way, what was the other place that was on the in the book? It was the Norconian. So we're going to have to talk about that soon.
Yeah, talk about the Norconian too, and also the nature preserve is within walking distance. Some people who are a little more adventuresome on their hikes could park at the nature center, which is about 1.5 miles from here, and there's various trails that can get you to this point as well.
That's so awesome. Well, right now we're going to start filming in another spot and talk a little bit more about Norco, California. All right, everybody, we're back on another spot in the Norco Powerhouse or Pedley Powerhouse. I keep getting it wrong, but you know what? When you look up on Google, it does say Norco Powerhouse. So we got to talk about the city of Norco since we're in Norco right now. And I always think of, obviously, Horsetown Now USA. That's pretty much a new slogan, though, isn't it? It's just from like 2005 or 6?
Yeah, it's a recent slogan, but I think it's been part of this culture for many years. I know growing up, I grew up in Chino, not too far from here, and when we moved out from Fullerton, one of our choices was Norco or Chino, and Norco had a lot more rural options. They had horse properties even back then, so although they didn't identify as a rural horse area, that quickly became its identity for the last couple of decades.
And I think one of the most famous people to ever live here was Desi Arnaz. I always remember he lived here. Is that correct?
I believe so. There was a number of famous celebrities that lived out here, a number of famous celebrities who came out here. This was a destination in the 30s with the famous Norconian hotel out there in Norco. And so that drew a lot of people from Hollywood and luminaries from around the world. Olympic athletes used to train at the Norconian because it had Olympic quality equestrian and swimming and things like that there. So it's been a popular draw throughout Southern California for a long time.
Now, I always think it's the lake or the Norconian. It's a big place. It's huge. Would you like to tell everybody watching how many things are technically there? Because it's technically like 4 states, right?
It is. One of the fascinating things about the Inland Empire, and one of the things I've noticed over the years in the Inland Empire, is we're not resource rich. We don't have an abundance of everything here. We make do with what we've got. So when we make something, we just keep remaking it and reusing the space until it's all gone. So we're really good at the whole recycling and reuse thing. And so the Norconian Norconian in later years fell into disrepair, was picked up by the Navy. So there's a naval surface warfare station that is operated next to the Norconian. There's also a women's prison that operates also there on the properties. And then right next to those three other things is the Riverside Community College's Norco campus. Riverside Community College District's Norco campus is there. So you've got all kinds of industries, all kinds of uses, all kinds of reuses from that famous Norconian hotel. Unfortunately, it's not being used as a hotel, which is a shame because if you could see some of the early pictures and even some of the recent pictures from historians in the area, you would understand what a unique cultural resource it is and something that we should be able to see. It's an important part of the history of Norco and the history of the Inland Empire.
If I remember correctly, in 2000 or 2001, it became a national landmark, and then the year after, it shut down. Am I correct?
It is. It's crazy by these national landmarks. They say, oh, it's a special place we need to preserve, and then you can't get to them unless you are incarcerated, perhaps, or join the Navy. Maybe you can go see it. Both of those things are long-term commitments, and while I do love the Norconian, I would like to find other ways to visit besides those two options.
So if somebody's watching and can get us in, we would love to do a follow-up episode inside there. We're not joking. We would do that.
Right, yeah, a legit one. We would, in light of day and things like that.
Oh, yeah, and I'm no joke. It's one of those cool things. When I look at the old pictures, you see everybody like Fatty Arbuckle, Charlie Chaplin, all the way to like people just really cool people hanging out there back in the day. And I think 100 years ago from now, because that was 100 years back, that was a big party place and a big place to hang out or just kind of get away from everything.
That's true. Yeah, it was a famous getaway, and the Inland Empire was known for that in terms of a destination for Hollywood to escape from. But in many different ways, this area really influenced those players. And like I said before, Olympic athletes would train here, and Hollywood stars would become immersed in our culture and influence our culture, but also take some of that culture back with them when they filmed in Los Angeles. So some of our ideas and some of our backdrops, of course, would make their way into those Hollywood pictures, would then be broadcast around the world. So it's our little way in which we influence and infiltrate other parts of our community in Southern California here.
And I did notice a lot of the pictures of people coming down, famous people or athletes and stuff back in the day, celebrities would come there to go visit people that were sick. And that's really nice that people would come out here and do that and do something good for their community. Even back then, now 100 years later, you could still do that stuff if you're doing, you could have the means to do it. And they had the means back then. So it's kind of nice to find out that kind of history, positives,
Yeah, certainly, and related to healthcare, since you mentioned it, the reason the Norconian exists is because they were drilling for oil and other natural resources, and they came up dry, but they did find a natural mineral spring, and they decided that this could be a cool health spring destination. And related to health later, after the Navy took over the place, World War II, this was a location where we brought our war wounded back. And we rehabilitated them so that they could re-enter society back in the 40s. And this is a radical idea. And the first time a lot of these things were done for soldiers who returned from the battlefield. And we had so many soldiers that were injured and in wheelchairs and harmed in other ways that we created these basketball leagues, right? And so the first wheelchair basketball leagues, the first teams to play that game and design that game, it happened right here at the Navy Hospital here at the Norconian Hotel. So that's another famous, important piece of local history that relates to the health and well-being of our community.
Now, it's a rumor. I've always heard this for years. I've probably got this wrong, but is it true that they have some connection to the song Hotel California?
I do not know of any legitimately verified connection to them, but you certainly, if you look at some of the haunted images from the last couple of years when it was in disrepair, and you played that song over it, you could certainly catch that vibe.
Always heard a rumor that one of the guys from the Eagles wrote it there, but yeah, right, whatever. You hear these things and you're like, they're rumors, but who knows?
No, a lot of famous people have wandered the streets and been born and raised in these areas, so it's entirely possible that several interesting creations have taken place in the Inland Empire.
Oh yeah, and again, do we have to own a horse to come live in Norco, or you can just come and hang out now? Because, that's the one thing. When I come down here, I'm driving around, I see a lot of horses, and it's just a few miles, maybe less than 10 miles from my home, and all of a sudden you can have a horse, you can own one, or you get to go hang out and maybe take your kids out riding, which is really cool. There's a lot of places in Norco. Is there anywhere else you would recommend for families to go hang out, or maybe even go take a hike, like even the Santa Ana River?
Yeah, places around the Santa Ana River are very popular. They've actually built some safety features into parts along the Santa Ana River. This has always been an informal area to play in for families, particularly along the Santa Ana River here. And I grew up in Chino, so the part of the Santa Ana River I used to play in, it was down there in Chino. And so while it's not necessarily official, they have put better services in place. There's restrooms in some areas. So I would invite you to use some of those spaces, as well as other public resources around the city of Norco. And then you can also check out what's happening on the campus of Norco. They do have events of various kinds there, and so this is a college town as well. It's a horse community. It's a college town. It's a military family's home. They serve a number of different communities, and some of those communities intermingle. I'm sure there is a horse riding college student who is also connected to the Naval Surface Warfare Center as an intern, or perhaps somebody like that. So that diversity and that variety that you see here in Norco is just an example of what you see throughout the larger region of Southern California.
I remember when I'd come out here to go eat at some of the local places, there was a place, I don't know if it's still there, it was a Cowgirl Cafe, and they would always have like double of everything when I'd go eat. So whenever I'd come out to Norco, I always think, like, I'm gonna get double of the food. It's great places out here, family, fun, but it's delicious too. When you come out here, there's great places to go stop and eat and go hang out. I'm trying to think of anything else. There's the Norco Fair, which I need to go check out. I think they even have a Renaissance Fair.
That makes sense. A rural community like this is going to have a number of different events. I'm aware of at least one rodeo that they have here every single year, which brings a lot of people from outside the community into Norco and into our community to see what's so desirable about us. We're a big mix in this area of rural and urban, and so you go a couple of miles and you're in a dense urban area, and you go a couple more miles and you're in a vast wooded area like this. And throughout our community too, we've planted trees everywhere we've gone. And so while our natural environment doesn't include the trees that you see here, I sure am glad that that's one change to our environment that we've made here since over the last 150 years, is the number of trees you can find in Norco and throughout the region.
It is nice. There's a lot of stuff down there, a lot of trees, it's just a really cool place. When we're walking around, a lot of really pretty white flowers. I don't know what kind they are. It is really beautiful around here. You gotta come check it out. Now, I'm thinking of also in Norco, you always see kind of cool things. If you go for a hike, you go for a drive, it's not uncommon to see Gumby. Is that true?
Gumby, yes, I've seen these images of Gumby around. Are you talking about some of the graffiti installations around these areas?
Not just that, but there's a gentleman who has a full Gumby in his front yard.
I have not seen the full Gumby in the front yard.
I think it's only about a street down.
Not too far away from Norco either. There's another community very nearby, Miraloma. There's the Tonka Truck Cemetery. I don't know if you visited that place. That's a drive-by you can do too.
I have to go check that out. I learned something new right now.
You can see it from the street. Sometimes the caretaker is out there and you can chit-chat with him. But yeah, that's an interesting, unique part of local history too.
Now there's another special place, local, that if you want to come out here and go for a hike, it's on top of a mountain. It's a little bit to get to. And it's not right by here. It's a few miles away. But there is a giant pumpkin, isn't there?
Yeah. There's a beautiful giant pumpkin. Again, this is something that the community takes care of. So when you visit, you can see that it's maintained well. It doesn't have tons of trash lying around. And it gets painted periodically. I don't know where and when they do that, but I'm sure there's a group somewhere. There's always a group somewhere in these communities that sets this up as their responsibility. And then you wake up one day and you realize, oh, that's a new shade of orange up there this year. That smile looks a little different than it used to. There's more teeth than there used to be. So yeah, that's another great example and something to check out. And like this place, if you return to it time and again, it changes. The space changes, the art changes, the people coming and going, and the things growing all change.
I gotta say, there's one little thing about that pumpkin. When I went there last time, this was years ago, there were baby pumpkins everywhere. Somebody was painting the little rocks as baby pumpkins. And I thought it was the most adorable thing. Like, they took the time to make little baby pumpkins everywhere. It felt really neat and something special.
And I think that's really a way that these things sustain and last. We talked about this place being abandoned various times because it stops being used. It's not useful to the community. It created power, and then it didn't do that anymore. So we found other uses for it. Same thing with this pumpkin. As it expands and changes in uses and grows, it's going to likely be there for a long time. So if you're watching this 20 years from now, it's probably still there.
That's awesome. And I hope you're watching Visit SoCal in 20 years from now. I know, what's today? We're in 2021. So, in 20 years from now, hey, hope we're still going to say hi to you. We'll be in rockers.
2040, look us up. We're probably still around, right?
I hope so.
Yeah, we're in one of the better homes of Riverside.
Yeah, we'll be hanging out at the same home. Hey, remember when we did this video at the Powerhouse?
Yeah, it'll be themed. It'll be themed with rock star. We'll have rock themes. We'll have Snoop Dogg will come through. We'll have special guests doing arts and crafts with us. It'll be really neat.
And plus, we're going to be doing a lot of bingo, everybody.
Yeah, a lot of bingo. I think that's going to be in my future.
All right, everybody. I think we're going to maybe do one more shot because we got to talk about Larry and how he started becoming an author and why he makes these cool books about Riverside, Inland Empire, and why it's so cool to visit SoCal. All right, everybody. We're in another spot of the Powerhouse because this place is pretty cool and there is tons and tons of art everywhere. I'm not even going to lie. There's somebody right now right beside us doing some art themselves. It's pretty cool, to be honest, to see it, but we don't want to get them in trouble or anything. But the main reason, again, we stopped down here is all about Larry and his cool books. He's an author and a whole bunch of other things in Riverside. I think you're even a teacher. Am I correct?
Yeah. I think I'm an active member of the gig economy, so I do a little bit of teaching. I do a little bit of writing. I do a little bit of childcare. I've got a 6-year-old daughter that I chase around from time to time, and various other projects. If an art thing comes up with a partner, I'll help out with that, or here and there. So I just try to stay busy and involved and do some volunteer work. We run into each other from time to time at council meetings and things like that, doing our civic duty and sharing our perspectives with our government.
I notice Larry's always very nice and says positive things whenever I stop down there at the city council. And also, I'm pretty much not cranky. I'm usually saying positive things about coming to Riverside, and he notices that. And I always notice that he has cool books. So let's talk about, well, I do want to talk more about the city, and we could, but we got to finish this show up. It's just, we're good friends, you can tell.
Yeah,
The Secret Inland Empire, this is your newest book, is that correct?
That's correct. That's been out for about a year now, and it's available throughout Southern California. A lot of the museums in the area carry it, and if you go into a museum and visit and want to buy it and they don't have it, just buy something else from that museum, for goodness sake. That would be my recommendation, and that's typically what I do as well.
Shop local, right?
Yeah, shop local, and if you go for something and they don't have it, don't go to Amazon and get it. Just get whatever's there. Make a change. Be flexible. That's another way to help the local economy, is to be flexible.
Oh, yeah. And then is there going to be a sequel to this?
There may be a sequel. There may be a revision. There was places that I wanted to put in there that couldn't put in there. There's new places that have been discovered since then. So hopefully myself or other authors will be inspired by places in this area and will write books about the Inland Empire, because we need more voices to be shared about this region. And that's really what I enjoy about writing these books and doing art in this area. And sharing my perspective with my local government is to share the voices. We have a diverse range of voices here. Like Patrick said, we've got a couple of young women over here sharing their voice and their perspective right here as we're speaking. So you can really capture that change and that progress and forward momentum, which has been a part of the Inland Empire since it was an idea.
Now, I want to also promote your other book.
Oh, thank you.
100 Things to Do in Riverside Before You Die. It's a cheery book.
Yeah, it's a cheery book. Yeah, the title is meant to be humorous. It's not meant to be threatening in any way, shape, or form. None of these places will kill you if you do them properly. They are all just ways in which to understand and enjoy the culture and community that is Riverside and also some of the surrounding areas.
Oh, yeah. And are these your only 2 books?
No, I also write fiction and poetry, so I've got some other books along those lines as well. I do a lot of work with a group called the Inlandia Institute. I'm a volunteer with them. They publish the voice of the Inland Empire more comprehensively than any other organization in the area, past or present, and likely into the future. So when I'm looking for things to read, when I'm looking for inspiration, I go to places like the Inlandia Institute for books about this area, for histories and art and culture that's relevant to people who care about Southern California.
Now, if somebody wants to buy these books or contact you, how do you get a hold of Mr. Larry Burns? And we're not talking about Larry Burns from The Simpsons, everybody. Because when I first met him, I had to ask him, do you know about Larry Burns?
No, I am not the son of the long-lost son of Montgomery Burns, Larry Burns, who was famously played by Rodney Dangerfield, which is one of my favorite Simpsons episodes, literally because of that.
That one scene where Rodney's walking and he's talking, and he's like, who am I talking to?
Yes. Yeah, I feel very out of place sometimes, even walking around the Inland Empire.
Yeah, I love that name, though. That's how I can remember your name. I won't lie, I'm a huge Simpsons fan. But again, how do we find you online? Facebook, Instagram, Twitter?
I try to be easy to find. I have a website, larryburns.net, Facebook, Larry Mark Burns, Instagram, Larry Mark Burns. the books. I do a Secret Inland Empire page that documents new and cool things about the Inland Empire. So, and podcasts like this podcast and other things that tell you about stuff you can do, usually for free, around the Inland Empire.
And that's what it's all about. Thank you so much for your dedication to Riverside County, Inland Empire, everywhere around, and making people find places that, hey, we wouldn't have been able to check out until you told us about it. And any last words?
This is a special place. Today would be an excellent day to get outside and discover a piece of it.
Thank you so much for being part of Visit SoCal today. See you guys on the next episode. We had a blast today here in Norco, and at the Powerhouse, I want to thank my guest, Mr. Larry Burns, everybody, and my crew behind the scenes, Mr. Gary Payne behind the camera, and our photographer, Michael J. Elderman, the Eyes of Riverside. Hope to see you on the next episode of Visit SoCal. Thanks for watching.